So I mean that's interesting because I came to Marxism not as a scholar or an intellectual. I came to Marxism and socialism and left politics through my organizing, and it wasn't until like much later when I was in grad school that I actually began to really think about incorporating that kind of more specifically the anti-imperialism into my scholarship. It never fit because there was such hostility. I mean, I did my grad school in South Dakota, which is like probably the worst place to be a communist. Well, there's other worse places to be, but growing up, like that wasn't something that you just like, hey, yeah, I'm a leftist, this and that. But that was something that I applied to my politics as an organizer and not necessarily to my intellectual project. And now I don't see them as separate. I don't see like, oh, today I'm a professor. It's like, no, actually, I think of myself as in sort of a relationship or conversation with social movements that I'm a part of. And I think that's a different kind of like knowledge production. I think it actually comes and arises from, Native American studies original origins or Native studies original origins and intention as a project, because it was supposed to bring this kind of critical, internationalist approach to the grassroots. And when I travel abroad now, it's like the methodologies that some of the methodologies, not all of them, some of the methodologies that I've learned in indigenous studies are not applicable throughout the rest of the world. And in fact, the formation of indigeneity within the settler colony of the United States or Canada is very distinct to the kind of indigeneity that's formed, let's say, in like Ecuador or Venezuela. So there's not a one-to-one comparison that way. But what we do share is a very profound understanding of imperialism, specifically U.S. imperialism, and the way that, in the context of like Venezuela, U.S. sanctions determine and suffocate their destiny as indigenous people, whereas U.S. imperialism and the occupation of our homelands and the usurpation of our self-determination and sovereignty affect our ability as Lakota, as Dakota people to determine our futures and our own forms of dignity.